Well, you're the guy who remembers everything. So just to recap, correct me if I have any of this wrong, Lamar. What you're suggesting is that there were 4 racist guys in Atlanta who were making basically a living, hustling money from factory workers after work, $5 a week, to kill and getting this money in order to kill Martin Luther King. They were using this money to buy land in North Georgia, and eventually, by '68, King was really having some successes, and the people who were paying them were getting really upset that he wasn't dead yet, and so they went to Carlos Marcello, the mob boss who was based out of New Orleans, and said, "We want to hire a hitman." And so Marcello, basically brought in James Earl Ray, who had worked for him for years and years, and James Earl Ray and possibly another person participated in shooting and killing Dr. King. And then Ray drove to Atlanta, maybe to pick up the money, I don't know, left his car near King's home, in fact, and then took the bus to Canada and then traveled to Europe, to England and Portugal and whatnot, all because he was connected to Carlos Marcello. Marcello could make these kind of things happen. First of all, is that a reasonable summary of what happened?
Pretty much, with one exception. Marcello only brokered the contract, and that means he didn't take the contract, but he brokered it, which means Marcello probably had exactly, one meeting or one phone call with probably Joseph Miltier. Money was passed, not at that meeting, but in another untraceable way, the way that Marcello had, but the fact that he had brokered it, that once you have that kind of backing, then everything else can kind of unwind, and you can always call on his vast resources if you need to. Right,
and Marcello, for people who don't know, was also behind the assassination of John Kennedy, as we also lay out in the book.
And like I say, Miltier, one of the 4 racists, actually talked about Kennedy's murder a few weeks before it happened on, police tape. But now here's something really important that you may not fully know about. So, for the Atlanta white supremacist side of our findings, not the Marcello side, but on the white supremacist fact of these 4 white supremacists here in Georgia, there's new confirmation about that as we speak. Out today is a book by a scholar by the name of Stuart Wexler. The book is called Killing King. And what Stuart Wexler did was take our revelations in Legacy of Secrecy, and he spent the last several years digging into those more deeply, in addition to other aspects of his own research into various offshoots of the Klans and racism. And he has turned up some pretty incredible confirmation, even from an FBI file, about the things that you and I had written about all those years ago.
Lamar, we're just about out of time, and I want to get to this. What are the connections between Carlos Marcello and Richard Nixon, and Carlos Marcello, Richard Nixon, and Donald Trump? And we've got about a minute or two.
Well, as I indicated before, so Nixon was the guy who first proposed that Trump run for president. They were introduced by Roger Stone. And yet Nixon had been taking bribes from Carlos Marcello throughout his political career, including just a few years after JFK was murdered. And then in 1985, Donald Trump's mentor was this crooked guy, this crooked attorney in New York named Roy Cohn, who literally told Trump how to become the sleazy, corrupt businessman that Trump is. And that same year, FBI files showed that Marcello was discussing hiring Roy Cohn to get him out of federal prison, where he finally was at that time. But here's the last important point is why more people don't know about how King was killed and why, and the racism that led up to it, is there are plenty of files about King's murder that have not been released to this day. They're mixed up with the JFK assassination files because identical names like Carlos Marcello and one of those 4 white supremacists, Joseph Miltier, they're in both files. So those files were supposed to be released by Congress. It passed that law. They were all supposed to be released last October. Trump was snowballed by the agencies at the last minute. He imposed a couple of new deadlines, March 26th and the final deadline of April the 26th. But I'm very confident that Trump is being snowballed again. All of these important files about King's murder and about JFK's murder that Congress had wanted to all be released when they passed the JFK Act back in '92, they're not going to be released. So unless people contact their members of Congress and the Senate and the House and say, you know, you guys passed a law to release all these files, because I'm telling you, the JFK assassination files do have material about the people who were involved in King's assassination. But unless people rise up and demand it, as we keep seeing in more and more places, those files are going to stay secret another 50 years.
Amazing the power that the mob had back in that day. Lamar Waldron, author of Legacy of Secrecy and the Hidden History, as well as other books, including The Hidden History of the JFK Assassination. Lamar, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Tom. I appreciate it.